David stared at the bright yellow paper stuck to his apartment door. His hands started shaking as he read the words, "Final Notice," in big red letters. 3 months behind on rent. 7 days to pay or get out. "Daddy, what's that paper?" His 6-year-old daughter Lily looked up at him with those big brown eyes that always made his heart melt. She was holding her favorite stuffed bunny, the one with the missing ear that they couldn't afford to replace. "Nothing important, sweetheart," David said, quickly pulling the notice down and stuffing it in his pocket. But Lily was smart, too smart for her age. She'd already figured out that something was wrong. It had been 8 months since David lost his job at the design company. 8 months of watching his bank account get smaller and smaller. 8 months of saying no to everything Lily asked. For 8 months of lying awake at night, wondering how he was going to make it work. He used to have a good life, a nice apartment, a car that didn't make weird noises, and enough money to take Lily to the movies on weekends. He was a graphic designer, creating logos and websites for small businesses. The work wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills and let him be creative. Then the company started losing clients. The boss called everyone into the conference room on a Tuesday morning and explained that they had to let half the staff go. David was one of the unlucky ones. "Last hired, first fired," the boss had said with a shrug, like it was just business. Since then, David had applied to hundreds of jobs. He'd gone to interviews where people looked at his resume and said he was overqualified for simple jobs, but underqualified for the good ones. It was like being stuck in the middle with nowhere to go. The worst part was watching Lily try to understand why their life had changed so much. She never complained when he served her peanut butter sandwiches for dinner 3 nights in a row. She didn't ask why they couldn't go to McDonald's anymore or why her friends' birthday parties were suddenly too far away to attend. David's phone buzzed. Another rejection email. "We've decided to go with someone else." The same words he'd read dozens of times before. He was starting to wonder if anyone would ever hire him again. That evening, after putting Lily to bed with a story about brave princesses and happy endings, David sat at his old laptop searching job websites. Most of the postings wanted experience. He didn't have or paid too little to cover even basic expenses. Then he saw it, a night janitor position at Sterling Industries downtown. The pay wasn't great, but it was steady work with health insurance. David stared at the screen for a long time. He'd gone from creating beautiful designs to cleaning toilets and emptying trash cans. The thought made his stomach twist. But then, he heard Lily cough in the next room, and he remembered the medical bills from her last doctor visit. Pride was a luxury he couldn't afford anymore. He clicked Apply Now before he could change his mind. 3 days later, David found himself standing outside Sterling Industries at 10 p.m., wearing the only clean dress shirt he had left. The building stretched up into the night sky, all glass and steel and the kind of money he used to dream about having. The security guard, an older man with kind eyes, showed him around. "Name's Frank," he said. "Been working nights here for 15 years. It's good, honest work. Don't let anyone tell you different." Frank explained the routine. Start on the ground floor, work your way up. Each floor had its own set of offices, break rooms, and bathrooms. The executive floors were on the top levels. "That's where the real money sits," Frank said with a chuckle. David's first night was harder than he expected. His back ached from pushing the heavy cleaning cart. His hands got rough from the chemicals. By morning, he was exhausted in a way that felt different from the tired he used to feel after long days at the computer. But when he got home and saw Lily getting ready for school, chattering about her math homework and her friend's new backpack, he felt something he hadn't felt in months. Hope. Not the big, dreamy kind of hope he used to have about becoming a famous designer, just the quiet, steady hope that comes from knowing you can pay rent next month. The next few weeks fell into a rhythm. David would get Lily ready for school, sleep for a few hours, pick her up from her after-school program, help with homework, make dinner, and then head to work. It wasn't the life he'd planned, but it was working. During his cleaning rounds, David started noticing things about the building. The way different departments decorated their spaces. The family photos on people's desks. The motivational posters that looked like they came from a corporate catalog but somehow still made him smile. The executive floors were different. Colder, more expensive furniture, but fewer personal touches. It was like the higher-up people got, the less human their spaces became. The biggest office belonged to someone named Victoria Sterling. The nameplate on her desk said, Chief Executive Officer in gold letters. David had heard the other janitors talking about her. They called her the Ice Queen because she never smiled and rarely spoke to anyone below executive level. Her office was always perfectly clean, like a museum display of what a successful person's workspace should look like. But something about it made David sad. There were no family photos, no plants, no signs that a real person spent most of their waking hours in this room. Just expensive furniture and awards on the wall. One night, while David was emptying the trash in the break room, he overheard two employees talking. "She's been working until midnight again," one said. "I don't think she ever goes home." David found himself thinking about that as he cleaned the executive floor. What kind of life was it, having all that money and success but no one to share it with? At least he had Lily. Even when times were tough, he had someone who loved him unconditionally. As the weeks went by, David started taking pride in his work. Not because cleaning was his dream job, but because he was good at it. He noticed details other people missed. He learned which offices needed extra attention and which employees left thank you notes for the cleaning staff. He also started bringing Lily's homework with him on quiet nights. During his breaks, he'd help her with math problems or read her essays about what she wanted to be when she grew up. She always wrote about being a teacher or a doctor, jobs that helped people. David was proud that despite everything they'd been through, she still wanted to make the world better. One night, Frank found David in the break room, reading a story to Lily over video chat. "You're a good dad," Frank said simply. "Don't ever forget that. This job, it's just what you do. Being her father, that's who you are." David nodded, feeling tears he hadn't expected. For the first time in months, he believed that maybe everything would be okay. Not perfect, not the way he'd planned, but okay. And sometimes okay was enough. 3 weeks into his new job, David thought he had the building figured out. He knew which floors had the messiest break rooms, which offices always had overflowing trash cans, and exactly how long each floor took to clean. The routine was becoming second nature. But on this particular Tuesday night, something was different. As David pushed his cleaning cart toward the executive floor, he noticed lights still on in the corner office. Victoria Sterling's office. The CEO, who supposedly left every day at exactly 5 p.m., was still there at 11:30 at night. David paused outside her door, unsure what to do. He'd never actually seen her before, just heard stories from other employees. Some said she was brilliant but cold. Others called her ruthless. Frank had warned him to just clean around the executives and stay invisible, but the trash needed emptying and David had a job to do. He knocked softly on the door frame. "Excuse me, ma'am, I'm here to clean." The woman behind the desk didn't even look up. She just waved her hand dismissively and said, "Make it quick." Her voice was sharp, like she was used to giving orders and having them followed without question. David stepped into the office, trying not to stare. Victoria Sterling was younger than he'd expected, maybe in her early 30s. Her dark hair was pulled back in what had probably started as a perfect bun, but now had pieces falling around her face. She wore an expensive-looking blazer, but it was wrinkled like she'd been sitting in the same position for hours. The office itself told a story. Empty coffee cups were scattered across her desk. Chinese takeout containers sat on the side table, barely touched. Papers were everywhere, and her computer screen showed what looked like endless spreadsheets and charts. As David quietly emptied the trash can beside her desk, he accidentally bumped into a small picture frame. It tumbled toward the floor, and he caught it just in time. The photo showed a much younger Victoria smiling next to an elderly man with kind eyes. They both looked happy, really happy, in a way that seemed impossible to imagine from the stern woman sitting across from him now. "Be more careful," Victoria snapped, finally looking up. But when her eyes met David's, Something flickered across her face. Not exactly anger, but something deeper. Something that looked almost like pain. "Sorry about that," David said, carefully placing the photo back exactly where it had been. "I'll be more careful." He finished his work quickly and left, but he couldn't stop thinking about what he'd seen. Here was someone who had everything most people dreamed of: money, power, success. But she looked more tired and lonely than anyone he'd ever met. Over the next few nights, David noticed a pattern. Victoria was always there, working late, into the night. Sometimes she'd be on phone calls that sounded tense and businesslike. Other times she'd just be staring at her computer screen, rubbing her temples like her head hurt. David started paying more attention to the executive floor. He noticed things that the day cleaning crew missed: water rings on tables, dead plants in the reception area, burned-out light bulbs that made the whole floor feel gloomy. One night, David decided to do something about it. He brought a small plant from the lobby and placed it on the reception desk where Victoria would see it when she arrived each morning. Nothing fancy, just a little green life in all that corporate gray. The next night, the plant was still there. No one had thrown it away or moved it. David took that as a good sign. He started leaving other small touches. He made sure the coffee maker in the executive break room was spotless and ready to use. He replaced the wilted flowers in the reception area with fresh ones from the building's entrance garden. He even left little positive quotes on small pieces of paper in places where stressed executives might find them, tucked into the coffee station or left on the reception desk. Frank noticed David spending extra time on the executive floor. "You don't have to go above and beyond up there," he said. "Those folks don't notice things like that." But David kept doing it anyway. Maybe it was because he remembered what it felt like to work long hours trying to make ends meet. Maybe it was because he recognized the look of someone who was pushing themselves too hard. Or maybe it was just because his daughter had taught him that small kindnesses could make big differences. The breakthrough came on a Thursday night in late October. David was running behind schedule because the coffee machine on the 15th floor had broken and flooded the break room. By the time he reached Victoria's office, it was almost 2 a.m. He expected the office to be dark and empty, but the lights were still on. As he got closer, he realized why. Victoria had fallen asleep at her desk, her head resting on a pile of papers. Her computer was still running, showing what looked like financial reports that would make David's eyes hurt just looking at them. She looked different when she was sleeping. Younger, less intimidating, more human. David stood there for a moment, unsure what to do. He could just clean around her and leave. But the office was cold, the air conditioning ran high at night, and she was wearing just her blazer. Quietly, David took off his own jacket and gently draped it over her shoulders. Then he dimmed the harsh overhead lights, leaving just her desk lamp on so she wouldn't wake up in complete darkness. Before leaving, he wrote a quick note on a piece of paper and left it where she'd see it. Everyone deserves rest. Night maintenance. When David came in the next night, his jacket was folded neatly on the reception desk with a simple note: "Thank you." From that night on, things changed. Victoria started leaving her office door open when David came around to clean. She'd nod when he knocked, acknowledging him like a real person instead of invisible help. Sometimes she'd even say good evening or ask how his night was going. The conversations were brief and polite, but they were conversations. David learned that Victoria was dealing with a major merger that could make or break the company. She learned that David had a daughter and sometimes brought homework to help her with during his breaks. One night, Lily fell asleep in the lobby while waiting for David to finish his shift. The after-school program had closed early due to a power outage, and David had no choice but to bring her to work with him. When Victoria came down to the lobby for some fresh air, she found David gently shaking Lily awake. "Hey, sweetheart. Time to go home," he was saying softly. "Is everything all right?" Victoria asked. Up close, David could see that her stern expression was more tired than mean. "My daughter's program closed early," David explained. "I didn't have anywhere else for her to go." Victoria looked at the sleepy 6-year-old, then back at David. For a moment, her business mask slipped completely. She can sleep on the couch? In my office, she offered. It's more comfortable than those lobby chairs. David was surprised. This was the same woman people called the Ice Queen, offering to help his daughter. As they settled Lily on the soft leather couch in Victoria's office, the little girl looked up at the CEO with sleepy eyes. You have a really big office, she said with the honesty only children possess. But it's not very cozy. Victoria actually smiled, the first real smile David had seen from her. You know what? You're absolutely right. While Lily slept, David and Victoria talked quietly. He learned that she'd taken over the company when her grandfather died, that she'd been fighting to prove herself ever since. She learned that David used to be a graphic designer, that he'd taken the custodial job to provide stability for his daughter after losing his previous position. You designed websites? Victoria asked, looking at some of David's work on his phone. These are really good. David felt a warmth he hadn't experienced in months. Someone was seeing his talents again, recognizing that he was more than just the guy who emptied trash cans. When Lily woke up, she thanked Victoria politely, the way David had taught her to always be grateful when people were kind. As they were. Leaving, Victoria called out, David? He turned back. Same time tomorrow? She asked. David nodded, understanding that she wasn't just talking about his cleaning schedule anymore. After that night with Lily sleeping on her office couch, something shifted between David and Victoria. The invisible wall that usually separated the CEO from the cleaning staff had started to crack. Victoria began staying later at the office, but now it felt different. Instead of desperately trying to finish endless work, she seemed to be waiting for something. Or someone. When David arrived for his shift each night, Victoria would glance up from her desk with what might have been the beginning of a smile. Their conversations grew longer, moving beyond simple politeness to actual interest in each other's lives. How was Lily's day? Victoria would ask, and David could tell she really wanted to know. She got an A on her science project, David said, one night unable to hide his pride. She built a volcano that actually erupted, made a mess in the kitchen, but it was worth it to see her face light up. Victoria listened with an attention that surprised David. Here was someone who made million-dollar decisions every day, genuinely interested in a 6-year-old's homework achievements. I never built a volcano, Victoria said quietly. I was always too busy studying for the next test to do fun projects. David heard something sad in her voice, like she was realizing what she'd missed. It's never too late, he said. Maybe sometime. You could help Lily with a project, she'd love that. The idea seemed to both terrify and intrigue Victoria. She'd spent so many years focused on business that the thought of helping a child with homework felt like speaking a foreign language. As weeks passed, David learned more about the woman behind the corporate mask. Victoria's grandfather had built Sterling Industries from nothing, starting as a small family business and growing it into the empire it was today. When he died suddenly 3 years ago, Victoria was thrust into leadership at just 28 years old. Everyone expected me to fail, she told David one night while he organized papers on her desk. The board, the investors, even some of our longtime employees. They thought a young woman couldn't handle the pressure. But you proved them wrong, David said. Victoria nodded, but there was no joy in it. I proved I could be tougher than any of them. But somewhere along the way, I forgot how to be anything else. David understood that feeling. After his wife left, and he became a single father, he'd built his own walls, focusing only on survival and providing for Lily. The difference was that his walls were meant to protect his daughter. Victoria's walls seemed to protect no one. They just kept her isolated. One evening, David brought photo albums on his phone to show Victoria pictures of Lily's school activities. Victoria studied each image carefully, asking questions about Lily's friends, her teachers, her favorite subjects. She looks happy, Victoria said, lingering on a photo of Lily laughing on the playground. She is, David replied. Even when things are tough, she finds reasons to smile. Kids have this amazing ability to see good in everything. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. I used to be like that, before my parents died in that car accident when I was 12. before I had to grow up too fast. It was the most personal thing Victoria had ever shared, and David felt honored that she trusted him with it. He also understood now why she worked so hard, why she seemed to carry the weight of the world on her shoulders. The turning point came in early November. David arrived at work to find Victoria sitting in the dark in her office, staring out the window at the city lights below. She looked smaller somehow, less intimidating than usual. "Everything okay?" David asked, setting down his cleaning supplies. Victoria turned, and David was shocked to see tears in her eyes. "It's my birthday," she said simply. David waited for her to continue. 31 years old today. Not one person in this building mentioned it, not my assistant, not the board members, nobody. She laughed, but it sounded hollow. "I guess when you're the boss, people forget you're human." David's heart broke a little. He thought about how Lily had insisted they make a big deal out of his birthday last month, even though they couldn't afford much. She'd drawn him cards and sang to him and made him feel like the most important person in the world. "Wait here," David said. Victoria looked confused, but David was already heading toward the elevator. He rode down to the building's small convenience store in the lobby, which stayed open all night for the security guards and maintenance crew. He bought a chocolate cupcake, the kind with too much frosting that Lily always chose at the grocery store. He also grabbed a small candle from the emergency supplies in the maintenance closet. When he returned to Victoria's office, she was still, sitting in the same position, looking lost. David set the cupcake on her desk and carefully stuck the candle in the frosting. He lit it with his lighter and pushed the small treat toward her. "Happy birthday, Victoria," he said softly. Victoria stared at the cupcake like she'd never seen one before. The tiny flame flickered in the dark office, casting warm light on her face. "I can't remember the last time someone gave me birthday cake," she whispered. "Make a wish first," David said. Victoria closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and blew out the candle. When she opened her eyes, they were filled with tears again, but these looked different. Grateful instead of sad. "Thank you," she said, and David could tell she meant it more than any business thank you she'd ever given. They shared the cupcake, sitting across from each other in her big leather chairs. Victoria laughed when frosting got stuck to her nose, and David realized it might have been the first time he'd heard her really laugh. "What did you wish for?" David asked. Victoria smiled, a real smile that transformed her entire face. "I wished for more moments like this, more real connections, more reasons to remember what it feels like to be happy." From that night on, their friendship deepened in ways neither of them had expected. Victoria started asking David's opinion about office design changes, valuing his artistic eye. David found himself looking forward to their conversations, enjoying the way Victoria's mind worked and how she saw the business world. One night, Victoria noticed David helping Lily with math homework over video chat during his break. "She's struggling with fractions," David explained apologetically. "I was always good at math," Victoria offered hesitantly. "Maybe I could help?" The next night, Victoria joined David's video call with Lily. What started as homework help turned into Victoria telling stories about her own school days, making math problems into adventures about pirates dividing treasure and princesses calculating distances to rescue dragons. Lily was enchanted. She'd never met anyone like Victoria, someone so important who still took time to help a little girl with homework. For Victoria, it was a glimpse into the family life she'd never experienced. As David watched Victoria patiently explain fractions using drawings and silly voices, he realized something that both excited and terrified him. He was starting to see Victoria not just as his boss or even as a friend, but as someone he could care about deeply. And from the way Victoria looked at him when she thought he wasn't watching, the soft smiles she saved just for him, and the way she lit up when Lily called her Miss Victoria, like she was part of their little family, David wondered if she might be feeling the same way. But they both knew that crossing that line would change everything. The question was whether either of them was brave enough to take that risk. December brought the first real snow of the winter, and with it, a problem that changed everything for David and Victoria. David arrived at work one Tuesday night looking more worried than usual. Victoria noticed immediately. She'd gotten good at reading his moods over the past few months. "What's wrong?" she asked as he started his cleaning routine in her office. David hesitated. He'd gotten comfortable talking to Victoria about many things, but this felt different, more serious. "There's been an issue with my apartment building," he finally said. "Failed some kind of safety inspection. Everyone has to move out by the end of the week." Victoria looked up from her computer, giving him her full attention. "Where will you and Lily go?" "I'm working on it," David said, but Victoria could hear the uncertainty in his voice. "Maybe a motel for a few nights until I find something affordable." The thought of Lily sleeping in a motel room made Victoria's chest tight with worry. She'd grown attached to the little girl over their homework video calls. Lily had started asking about Miss Victoria every day, wanting to know about her work and if she was eating enough vegetables. "That's not safe for a child," Victoria said, surprising herself with how protective she sounded. David nodded. "I know. But with my current salary and the security deposits landlords want..." He trailed off, not wanting to burden Victoria with his financial struggles. That night, Victoria couldn't concentrate on her work. She kept thinking about David and Lily, imagining them in some rundown motel room with thin walls and questionable safety. The image bothered her more than any business problem she'd ever faced. By morning, Victoria had made a decision that shocked even her. She called David before his shift started. "I have a proposal," she said, trying to sound businesslike. "I have a guest house behind my main house. It's fully furnished, 2 bedrooms, completely private. You and Lily could stay there temporarily while you look for a new place." David was quiet for so long that Victoria wondered if the call had dropped. "Victoria, I can't accept that," he finally said. "That's too much." "It's a practical business decision," Victoria said quickly, falling back on corporate language when emotions got too complicated. "You're a reliable employee. It's in the company's interest to ensure you have stable housing." But they both knew it was more than that. After much discussion and David's insistence on paying rent, they agreed on the arrangement. That weekend, David and Lily moved into the small but beautiful guest house on Victoria's property. Living so close to each other changed their relationship in ways neither had expected. Victoria would look out her kitchen window in the mornings and see David helping Lily with her backpack, walking her to the school bus stop. She'd never realized how much work single parenting involved, how David balanced everything with such grace. One evening, Victoria came home from work to find a drawing stuck to her front door. It was from Lily, a picture of 3 stick figures, labeled Daddy, Me, and Miss Victoria, standing in front of 2 houses with a big rainbow overhead. At the bottom, in Lily's careful handwriting, "Thank you for helping us." Victoria kept that drawing on her refrigerator, the first personal item her sterile house had seen in years. As days turned into weeks, their lives began to interweave in small but meaningful ways. Victoria would bring coffee to David in the mornings, before work. David would shovel her walkway after snowstorms. Lily would run to Victoria's door after school, excited to share stories about her day. One Saturday afternoon, Victoria was working in her home office when she heard laughter from the backyard. Looking out, she saw David and Lily building a snowman. They were both covered in snow, laughing as they tried to roll the snowman's head into place. "Miss Victoria," Lily called out when she spotted her at the window. "Come help us. He needs a face." Victoria hesitated. She had reports to review, emails to answer, but something about Lily's joyful expression made her close her laptop. 20 minutes later, Victoria Sterling, CEO of a major corporation, was on her hands and knees in the snow, helping a 6-year-old find the perfect rocks for snowman eyes. Her expensive coat was soaked, her hair was a mess, and she couldn't remember the last time she'd felt so purely happy. "You're good at this," David said, watching Victoria show Lily how to make the snowman smile symmetrical. "I never built a snowman as a kid," Victoria admitted. "My grandmother thought it was too messy." "Well, you're making up for lost time now," David said softly, and something in his voice made Victoria look up at him. The way he was watching her, gentle and warm, made her heart race in a way that had nothing to do with the cold. That night, after Lily had gone to bed, David knocked on Victoria's front door. She answered in sweatpants and an old college t-shirt, looking more relaxed than he'd ever seen her. "I wanted to thank you again," he said. "For everything. The house, helping with Lily, just being kind to us." "You don't need to thank me," Victoria said. "Having you both here has been—" She paused, searching for words that wouldn't reveal too much. "It's been nice. Having people around, having a reason to come home." They stood there in her doorway, the space between them feeling charged with possibility. David took a small step, closer. "Victoria," he said quietly, "I need to tell you something." She nodded, her heart pounding. "I'm falling for you," David said simply. "I know it's complicated. I know there are a million reasons why this is a bad idea. But I can't pretend anymore that what I feel for you is just friendship." Victoria felt her breath catch. She'd been fighting the same feelings for weeks, telling herself it was impossible, inappropriate, too risky. "David," she whispered, "I feel the same way, but I'm scared." "Of what?" "Of ruining what we have, of people judging us, of not being good enough for you and Lily." Her voice broke slightly. "I don't know how to be in a relationship. I don't know how to be part of a family." David reached out and gently took her hand. "You already are part of our family," he said. "Lily talks about you all the time. She draws pictures of the three of us together. And me? I've never felt about anyone the way I feel about you." Victoria looked down at their joined hands, then back up into David's kind eyes. For the first time in her adult life, she decided to take a leap of faith not based on business strategy or calculated risk, but on pure hope. "I want to try," she said. "I want to see where this goes." David smiled, that warm smile that had been slowly melting her defenses for months. "Are you sure?" Instead of answering with words, Victoria stepped closer and kissed him softly. It was tentative at first, then deeper as months of suppressed feelings finally found expression. When they broke apart, both were breathless. "I'm sure," Victoria whispered against his lips. But even as they held each other in her doorway, both knew that admitting their feelings was only the beginning. The real challenges, the board of directors, the company gossip, the outside world that would judge their relationship, were still waiting for them. For now, though, in the quiet of the snowy evening with Lily sleeping safely nearby, they allowed themselves to believe that love might be enough to overcome anything. Spring arrived early that year, bringing with it both new hope and unexpected challenges for David and Victoria. They'd been secretly dating for 3 months, stealing quiet moments together after Lily went to bed, sharing morning coffee before David headed home to sleep, and finding reasons to smile at each other during his work shifts. But keeping their relationship hidden was becoming harder each day. The first real test came when the company's board of directors noticed changes in Victoria's management style. She'd become more approachable with employees, more willing to listen to suggestions and less likely to work herself into exhaustion. While these were positive changes, some board members questioned what had caused this shift. "Victoria seems different lately," board member Robert Chen mentioned during a private meeting. "More distracted. I hope she's not losing her edge." What Robert and the others didn't know was that Victoria had found something more important than just business success. She'd found love, family, and a reason to leave the office before midnight. The secret became impossible to keep when Lily got sick with the flu. David had to miss work to take care of her, and Victoria found herself checking her phone constantly, worrying about them both. When David texted that Lily's fever had gotten worse and he was taking her to the emergency room, Victoria left an important board meeting without explanation. She arrived at the hospital still wearing her business suit and heels, completely out of place in the pediatric waiting room. When Lily saw her, the little girl's face lit up despite feeling terrible. "Miss Victoria, you came to see me," Lily said weakly, reaching out her arms for a hug. Victoria held Lily carefully, smoothing her hair and whispering that everything would be okay. David watched them together, his heart full of love for both of his girls. But their tender moment was interrupted by a familiar voice. "Victoria? What are you doing here?" They turned to see Robert Chen standing nearby with his own family. His expression showed confusion and something that looked like disapproval as he took in the scene. The CEO of Sterling Industries holding a sick child while standing next to the company's night janitor. The next morning, rumors spread through Sterling Industries like wildfire. People whispered about Victoria and David, making up stories about their relationship. Some employees were supportive, remembering David's kindness and Victoria's recent positive changes. Others questioned Victoria's judgment and David's motives. The gossip reached the boardroom within days. "This is completely inappropriate," board member Patricia Walsh declared during an emergency meeting. "A CEO dating an employee, especially someone in such a junior position? It's a public relations disaster waiting to happen." Victoria sat at the head of the conference table, feeling attacked but determined to stand her ground. "My personal life doesn't affect my ability to run this company. In fact, I'd argue that I'm a better leader now than I've ever been." "That's not the point," Robert interjected. "What will our clients think, our investors? This looks bad, Victoria, really bad." For a moment, Victoria wavered. She'd worked so hard to build respect in the business world. Was she willing to risk everything for love? Then she thought about David, about how he'd supported her dreams while helping her discover what really mattered in life. She thought about Lily, who'd brought joy and laughter into her empty house. She thought about the family they'd become, and realized that losing them would be far worse than losing the approval of a few narrow-minded board members. "I'm not going to apologize for finding happiness," Victoria said firmly. "David is a good man, a devoted father, and someone who's made me a better person. If you can't accept that, then maybe you're not the right people to be running this company with me." The tension in the room was thick as board members exchanged glances. Some looked shocked by Victoria's boldness. Others seemed to be reconsidering their positions. Victoria made her next move carefully but decisively. "I'm offering David a position in our marketing department. He's a talented graphic designer and his work speaks for itself. This isn't favoritism. It's recognizing talent that we'd be foolish to waste." She slid portfolios across the table, showing David's designs. The board members studied them, and even Victoria's harshest critics had to admit the work was impressive. "He can do the job," Victoria continued. "And I can love him while still being the best CEO this company has ever had. If anyone has a problem with that, you can submit your resignation." The room fell silent. Finally, Patricia Walsh spoke up. "The designs are good," she admitted reluctantly. "But this whole situation still feels risky." "Love is always risky," Victoria replied. "But it's also what makes life worth living." Over the following weeks, David proved himself in his new role. His fresh ideas and creative approach brought new energy to the marketing team. Client feedback was overwhelmingly positive, and even the skeptical board members had to acknowledge his contributions. Meanwhile, Victoria and David faced external challenges too. Some business magazines wrote articles questioning Victoria's leadership choices. Social media had mixed reactions, with some people criticizing their relationship while others celebrated their love story. The worst moment came when Victoria's estranged mother, Helen, showed up unannounced at the office. She'd seen the news coverage and came to express her disapproval. "This is embarrassing for our family," Helen declared in Victoria's office. "Dating the help? What would your grandfather think?" Victoria felt the old familiar sting of her mother's disapproval, but then she remembered all the evenings David had listened to her fears and doubts, all the times Lily had made her laugh, all the ways they'd made her life fuller and richer. "Grandfather would be proud of me for finding love," Victoria said quietly. "He always said that success without happiness was just an expensive form of loneliness." Helen left in a huff, but Victoria felt stronger than ever. She had David's support, Lily's pure love, and her own conviction that she was making the right choices. The turning point came 6 months later when Sterling Industries posted its most profitable quarter in company history. Victoria's more balanced leadership style, combined with David's innovative marketing campaigns, had created a workplace culture that attracted top talent and impressed clients. At the company celebration, Victoria stood before all the employees and spoke from her heart. "This success belongs to all of us," she said. "We've proven that when people feel valued and supported, they do their best work. I want to thank everyone who's made this possible, especially David Williams, whose creativity and dedication have elevated our entire marketing department." The applause was genuine and warm. Even former skeptics had come to respect David's contributions and see that his relationship with Victoria had actually benefited the company. That evening, David surprised Victoria with a small ceremony in their backyard. Lily had helped him set up lights and flowers, creating a magical atmosphere under the stars. "Victoria Sterling," David said, taking her hands, "you've changed my life in ways I never imagined possible. You've been a mother to Lily, a partner to me, and proof that love can overcome any obstacle." He got down on one knee, pulling out a simple but beautiful ring. "Will you marry me?" Victoria said yes through happy tears, and Lily cheered and danced around them, excited that their little family would be official. They married 6 months later in a ceremony that reflected their journey together. The guest list included employees from every level of Sterling Industries, from security guards to board members. Lily served as the flower girl, proudly walking down the aisle ahead of Victoria. In his speech, David thanked everyone who'd supported them through the challenges. "Love doesn't care about job titles or social status," he said. "It only cares about two people choosing to build a life together." Victoria's speech focused on the importance of staying true to yourself while remaining open to change. "I thought success meant having power and control," she said. "But real success is finding people who love you for who you are and help you become who you're meant to be." 5 years later, Victoria and David's love story had become legendary at Sterling Industries. David now ran his own design department, and Victoria led the company with a perfect balance of strength and compassion. Lily thrived in school and had become the unofficial mascot of Sterling Industries, with employees always asking about her latest projects and achievements. Their house was filled with the warmth and laughter that Victoria had never known she was missing. Family photos covered the walls, and Lily's artwork was displayed prominently in both their home and Victoria's office. The company continued to flourish under their partnership, known throughout the industry for its innovative campaigns and positive workplace culture. Victoria had been featured on magazine covers not just as a successful CEO, but as someone who'd proven that professional success and personal happiness could coexist beautifully. On quiet evenings, when Lily was doing homework and David was preparing for the next day's projects, Victoria would sometimes think back to that lonely woman who used to work until midnight in an empty office. She barely recognized that person anymore. Love had transformed them all. David had regained his confidence and creativity, Lily had gained a devoted mother figure, and Victoria had discovered that the greatest success wasn't measured in profit margins or